All right, we got Simon Rosenberg joining us. He's the president and the founder of the new Democratic Network, and next to him is Chris Tyrrell. Of course, you know him, the Washington political editor over at the Examiner. Chris, end it with you. Begin with you. How did the Democrats turn this around? How did they get this back on?
Well, I think for a lot of the members, Democratic members of Congress, there was a belief that President Obama would not lash himself to this ship of health care reform, that he wouldn't stake his own fate on it. And I think that they had reason to be concerned about that, that as this went forward, they thought, you're going to make us take the hit in the election, but come 2012, you'll be clean on this, and you will have said, well, I never told you what to do. I just told you to fix the health care system, and if people didn't like it, that's on you. Once he said, this is my bill, I wrote it, I made it, I own it, and if you don't like it, you don't like something I did.
But he got into it very late. It wasn't as if he just got engaged. It was like me the night before a final, like, oh my God.
He crammed at the end,
right.
And now he believes that he's pulled off the gentleman's C.
So who won this, assuming that's the case? Oh, it's way too early, but you never know. Who won it? Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, Steny Hoyer? The president?
I think two things happened today. One is that America got a better health care system, and the second thing is that you're seeing the Democrats learn how to become a governing party. Democrats have been out of power for a long time, and I think you're seeing them figure out how to put the pieces together to use the majority they have to execute their agenda. Big change in this town. There was a lot of question about whether Democrats...
How do you think they turned it around? I mean, Crystal was about the involvement of the president, and there's nothing minimizing that. But do you think any missteps on the part of Republicans? I said earlier that WellPoint trying to hike rates the way they did right after the Scott Brown election was a seminal turning where Americans woke up and said, geez, maybe these guys are SOBs.
I think that was it, and I also think that the Democrats realized that they're going to hang together or hang separately, that there really was an effort by Pelosi and Reid and the White House to bring themselves together as never before. If you remember, right after Scott Brown's election, there was a meeting in the White House with Pelosi, Reid, and Obama. It was the first time that they had ever sat down to really try to hash this thing out.
Rahm Emanuel was at that meeting and urged like healthcare light, right?
Well, I won't speak to what happened in the meeting, but what we do know is that...
Well, he was dressed.
Yeah, but I think what happened was I think the Democrats also realized that their majority was in danger and that they had to organize themselves better.
They doubled down.
They doubled down, but they also...
They doubled down.
And one thing that's important to remember as we go through this, approval for this plan didn't go up. Right. It wasn't WellPoint. It wasn't something else that made people say, hey, you know, I like this plan more than I thought. This was an exercise in political will where Democrats said they'd take the hit.
Continue free falling. You know what I mean?
He picked up, they got a few points back, as Democrats said, and it went back basically to where it was in September, and Democrats said, this is all we're going to get, and this is what's important. Instead of undecided people or regular Americans saying, okay, now we're more amenable to this idea, what happened was Democrats said, we have to stick together, we have to jam this thing through, because if we don't, we're totally cooked. We're roasted now.
That was the rap against 93-94, right? That the Democrats didn't vote on anything. But the argument, I guess, Nancy Pelosi was raising, better to vote on something and go down for principle, or at least to sign something you can show the voters, and that would make a difference.
And, you know, I think also the bill's not so bad. I mean, it's going to, I know that people may disagree on this, but a lot of people are going to get covered who didn't have coverage before. It's going to radically improve the health insurance of people who have it, and it's also going to bring down the deficit over time.
Well, how do you know it's going to improve the health insurance of people who have it?
For the people who pre-existing conditions, all the things that are going to come law right away, I think that this is going.
With pre-existing.
Well, I think it's going to make health care better in the country, and I think
that's interesting. So, Chris, what he's saying is that people will realize those benefits right away, and they'll look at some of the more unpleasant facts that you glossed over very shrewdly. but that's too late.
I'm not an economist. I know that this will either increase the deficit by $560 billion over the next 10 years or decrease it by $130 billion. So it's somewhere in between that. And here's the truth. We don't know how it's going to work because this has been put together in a Frankenstein fashion. This is all stitched together, and you're not going to know until this monster gets up and starts walking how it functions and what works and who loses their coverage, who gets coverage, which employers jack up rates, which employers drop coverage, how this all goes. The problem for Democrats is this. There are some tangible benefits that voters may receive, a small number of voters may receive between now and November, but the overarching theme is you've done something against the will of the electorate, and in 1994, Democrats learned doing things that are against the will of the electorate, whether you pass them or not, gets you voted out.
Very interesting. Your final thought?
Look, I think it's an important first step to fixing the broken healthcare system in the United States. I think we're going to be at this for a few years. I don't think we're done.
Not this particular coverage. We're getting very tired. But I understand what you're saying.
I think the Democrats are going to get a lot of credit for having gotten their act together and done something meaningful for the American people.
Guys, you were great. You want to take your act on the road. You're not too bad at this time. Thanks, guys, very, very much. I appreciate it.